honestly, this is a deal that happened pretty quickly. Like I'd say we really had some formative discussions about this specific opportunity late in the year.
Well, wow. Microsoft is set to make their biggest acquisition of all time, with them set to acquire Activision-Blizzard for $68.7 billion. Now, in this video, I'll go over what this means for the consumer, in this case, gamers, what this means for the workers at Activision-Blizzard and the recent controversy around that company, and also what this means for the gaming industry as a whole when you have this further consolidation of the gaming industry into the hands of a few massive corporations. So first, it's important to point out here that this could take roughly 18 months to complete. It has to get past regulators. The DOJ could stop this. The Biden administration could look into this and say, this is not good. We're going to break this up. But I'll get to why later on, why I don't think that's going to happen, why I think this will go through. But first here, let's start with just over a year ago. Activision purchased ZeniMax Studio, the parent company behind Bethesda, the developer of games like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Doom, for $7.5 billion. So that was $7.5 billion. At the time, it was called Microsoft's priciest video game acquisition. Now we're looking at $68.7 billion. Again, this is not just the biggest acquisition by Microsoft in gaming. This is the biggest acquisition Microsoft has ever made. So let me first briefly go over this press release, and then I'll get to how this impacts gamers, the workers, and the industry. So Microsoft will acquire Activision Blizzard for $95 per share in an all-cash transaction valued at $68.7 billion, inclusive of Activision Blizzard's net cash. When the transaction closes, Microsoft will become the world's third largest gaming company by revenue, behind Tencent and Sony. The planned acquisition includes iconic franchises from the Activision, Blizzard, and King studios like Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, Call of Duty, and Candy Crush, in addition to global esports activities through Major League Gaming. The company has studios around the world with nearly 10,000 employees. Bobby Kotick will continue to serve as CEO of Activision Blizzard, and he and his team will maintain their focus on driving efforts to further strengthen the company's culture and accelerate business growth. Once the deal closes, the Activision Blizzard business will report to Phil Spencer, CEO Microsoft Gaming. All right, so I will get to more on Bobby Kotick and what I think will happen with him. Yes, he's still serving as CEO, but again, the deal is not yet through. I think once the deal's through, it's going to become clear that he's not going to be there any longer. But before I get to more on that, first, how this will impact gamers. So this clearly is a strategy by Microsoft to acquire more franchises for Xbox Game Pass. So their Game Pass service is a subscription service. You pay a monthly fee where you have access to a massive catalog of games. I'm currently a subscriber. It is honestly a fantastic, if not overwhelming deal. I mean, there is just countless games there that I want to play. But looking from the perspective of someone who doesn't have access to Game Pass, doesn't have an Xbox, doesn't have a Windows gaming PC, they're kind of left out. Now, there is effort right now by Microsoft to try and get Game Pass into every home, essentially through cloud streaming. So if you have a fast enough internet connection, you still are able to sign up for Game Pass and access a lot of these games through the cloud. That is still a technology that is improving and obviously depends a lot on your internet connection. But that's going to be, I mean, that's their strategy here going forward, is to have all these franchises on Game Pass. And if you're a gamer, you're going to want to have Game Pass moving forward. That's kind of their whole idea here. But this does begin to consolidate an industry into the hands of a few, cutting out people that are on PlayStation, on Nintendo Switch, if they want to play some of these franchises. Now, that said, if Microsoft is smart, and they are, I imagine some of these will still be available elsewhere. Like a Call of Duty, for example. They can still have that available for quote unquote free, but subscription based on Game Pass, while still also selling a full priced version on PlayStation 5. There's no reason why they can't do that. And by the way, they are doing that in a sense with Minecraft right now. They own Minecraft, but Minecraft is not exclusive to Windows and Xbox. Minecraft is still everywhere, including on PlayStation, including on Switch, including on iPhones. So with some of their bigger franchises, I think they will still continue to have them available on other platforms if it makes business sense for them in terms of the development of those games on other platforms. And with a lot of the cross development, a lot of it is this multi-platform development. It is easier for these developers to do that. and you know, a lot easier than maybe it used to be. So I don't really see that being a barrier either. But again, it all depends on how Microsoft sees these franchises and how they can utilize them to either try and sell consoles or utilize them to simply make money in the case of having them on Game Pass and elsewhere. So that's the impact on gamers. Now, oh, also just mentioning to bring this up in terms of what Microsoft was saying about Bethesda when they acquired Bethesda. Future games will come to non-Xbox platforms on a case-by-case basis. So they had games, you know, they fulfilled previous agreements, you know, like with Deathloop, for example. Deathloop, a Bethesda game, but came out as a PS5 exclusive, is going to be on Xbox this year, later on this year. But they still, you know, of course, had to fulfill those deals. But doesn't mean that some of these games that they're going to develop in the future still won't be available on other platforms. So they may still go forward in doing that, just like they do with Minecraft. Now, on the workers here at Activision-Blizzard, how this will impact them and the recent controversy around that. So this first from Vice. Last summer, California sued Activision-Blizzard for being a quote-unquote breeding ground for harassment, where women were subject to so-called cube crawls, during which men at the company got drunk and crawled through office cubicles and harassed women. As Motherboard reported, Blizzard managers joked about sleeping with their assistants during meetings, and recruiters asked a woman if she liked being penetrated at conferences. Some shareholders have called for Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick to resign. So this is an issue, honestly, with a lot of the gaming industry, not just Activision Blizzard, but Activision Blizzard is one of the breeding grounds definitely for it, and a lot came out, a lot more than just this came out of the report, including allegations around Bobby Kotick in particular, which is why I think ultimately he's not going to be there. If this deal goes through, he'll have a buyout, he'll be gone, he's not going to be in the company anymore. And I think Microsoft would be smart to do that. Of course, Microsoft is also known to have a much better culture than Activision Blizzard does. So for the workers there, I think that is encouraging. At the same time, they have been in the process of trying this union effort. With this acquisition, again, if it goes through, I imagine that will quash this union effort, as a lot of the energy behind that is because of how management has treated the workers there. If that changes, a lot of that energy may go away. That said, as somebody who supports unions, I still think workers deserve to have their own voice. They should still organize. They should still go forward with this. But I just don't see it happening if Microsoft does go through and is able to have this acquisition, and it stops a lot of the allegations or a lot of the sentiment that workers there had towards management at Activision Blizzard. But last thing here, before I get to a clip, Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox and Microsoft, said that he was considering, this is when the allegations came out about Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick, considering taking action against Activision Blizzard, and that he was evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard and making ongoing proactive adjustments. So at the time, Phil Spencer came out fairly strongly against Bobby Kotick and Activision Blizzard, at least, you know, rhetorically. Well, here he is on CNBC being asked about this during an interview with him and Bobby Kotick.
This is something that you had kind of said at the time. You put out a memo internally saying that you were concerned about these reports. My guess is you guys have looked into this and you feel good about this if you are going ahead with this deal.
You know, culture is a journey for any workplace. It's something at Team Xbox we've been focused on for quite a long time. Obviously, going through the due diligence process, talking to the leadership team at Activision Blizzard about the plan they're already implementing. We look forward to supporting them in that plan through the closing of this deal. And then post-close, we know that the most important thing to a creative organization is that the employees feel safe, they feel heard, so they can do their best work. There's nothing that's more important to us.
Culture is a journey. He's going to be as vague as possible. He's not going to echo what he said before about Bobby Kotick and Activision Blizzard when he's right there and they're in this process of acquiring him. You know, it's all a big club. These guys are all incredibly wealthy. Even when Phil Spencer put out that statement about Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick, it really didn't mean anything unless there was some substance behind it, and there didn't really appear to be any substance behind it. So it's really just about, you know, I guess their way of dealing with this now is by taking on these allegations themselves. If they are acquiring Activision Blizzard, then it is now their responsibility to change the culture. And I guess you could say, you know, in terms of complimenting him here, this is the best thing you could say about Phil Spencer and Microsoft, is they are now taking that on and are going to address it themselves. Now, will they properly address it? We're going to have to wait and see, obviously. But it's in their best interest to properly address this. And again, Microsoft is known as a better company to work for than someone like Activision-Blizzard or Bobby Kotick. So I do imagine that things will get better given the proper time. Now, let's end on how this will impact the gaming industry. You have here further consolidation of the gaming industry into the hands of a few. So to look at the top companies here, you have Sony, you have Tencent, you have Nintendo, you have Microsoft, Activision-Blizzard, with Microsoft now eating up Activision-Blizzard. That now puts them in the top 3. I don't know. It's hard to really understand the impact of this unless we wait and see where everything goes. Because we're still talking about, it's not 1 or 2 companies. There's still several companies at the top. And largely, I would say, at least in terms of Microsoft, in terms of Sony, in terms of Nintendo, there is a lot of creative freedom at these companies. So in terms of the actual developers and who's making these games, they don't really appear to be restricted. And even separate from that, there's a lot of independent developers that sign, various deals for a game or two for certain platforms. But ultimately, they have a lot of freedom in this industry as well. So while this consolidation in terms of these major franchises, could ultimately end up hurting the consumer if you are not on Game Pass, it's hard to really know the long-term impact until we actually see what's going to happen over the next few years. And in terms of this acquisition in particular, you have Jason Schreier here at Bloomberg tweeting out, "I'm on vacation today, but if I were not, I would be calling up some antitrust experts because Xbox buying Bethesda and now Activision sure seems like the type of horizontal merging that the DOJ frowns upon." So the DOJ and Biden have been doing a lot of talk about antitrust, about trying to, stop these sorts of mergers. But will they? I don't think so. This administration is just as pro-corporate as any other one. It's the only difference here is rhetoric. So it's a lot of talk, not really a lot of action. Now, again, if it was, Facebook, Apple, maybe even Google doing this, then maybe they would step in or I should say making this kind of, major acquisition in terms of their spaces. Then maybe they would step in and try and stop this. But even then, I would be surprised. And in this case, we're talking about a very gaming specific acquisition. I don't think, honestly, the DOJ or Biden really care. And they may still say, hey, look, there's a bunch of companies here at the top. We're talking about, not 1 or 2. We're talking about Sony, Tencent, Nintendo, Microsoft, others, EA. So it's not as consolidated, at least in their minds, not as consolidated as, say, phones, for example, where you really only have Apple and Google. So they may not see an issue with this, which is why ultimately I think this deal will go through. It still may take 18 months for it to, fully process. But I think it will go through, and ultimately the impact on the gaming industry, we're going to have to wait and see for 5 or 10 years how that's really going to impact the consumer, the workers, and the industry as a whole.